I am here today with Mr. Joe Lowther. Hello, Joe.
Hello, delighted to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, you are quite a lot to do with something called Kick, which I want to delve into that just a little bit. But
Ooh.
before we go there, I'm looking over your shoulder. So if you're watching this on the YouTube later, there's lots of fantastic pictures. Even I, who are rubbish at sport, that's footballers. I can see that.
Yes, yeah, we've got an array of different athletes here. We've got I don't know if you can see this. We got the three World Cup wins that England have had in the cricket, the football, and the rugby. And then you got your two goats of football, Ronaldo and Messi, and Serena Williams, who I was a big fan of, Michael Jordan, Usain Bolt, and then Ronnie O'Sullivan, what a goat of snooker.
Snooker.
And then Federer, who I had the privilege to be on court with when I was a court cover at Wimbledon. And
Wow.
I watched all five of his back-to-back Wimbledon victories in person, which was just amazing when I was working at the tournament. And yeah, what a graceful tennis player he was. So yeah, big fan of sport and absolutely love it. And yeah, I just thought it was fun to have some of the greats up there.
I think I'd like that. I reckon I'm rubbish at sport, but even I can recognise those names.
Yeah, well played, well played. We got them, we got them. Usain Bolt isn't a footballer, although he'd like to be. But yeah, the sprinting was. I mean, what an amazing character to win the 100 meters with a world record time. I think that is the pinnacle of all sport. Is the who's the quickest over 100 meters. But yeah. Anyway, love it. Absolutely love sport.
Randomly, I remember watching. It was I don't know how wide the football field is, but they had the fastest footballers doing the sprint. Was it maybe a 60-meter one?
Yeah. Gareth Bale apparently is arguably the fastest over 60 meters football's ever seen. So he was absolute lightning and yeah, incredibly fast. Carl Walker, extremely fast. Kylian Mbappe, absolutely rapid. So yeah, but I'm familiar with one of those sprints and Carl Walker. Sorry, Gareth Bale was absolutely rapid.
Right. Let's go to Kick because, and if you don't know what Kick is, just give us a bit of an overview. What is Kick about, and what does it do? Where did it start from?
Well, look, our mission at Kick is to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. And so, what that means is that we go into schools and we do physical education in schools. So, when we deliver that through 25 different sports. Then the second thing we do in schools is street dance, and then we actually deliver 15 different dance disciplines. The second aspect we do in schools is mentoring. We use the solutions focused approach developed by Mark Beerbacht, which works with some of the more challenging pupils in the school around finding the solutions to the problems they face. And then fourthly, we deliver schools-based chaplaincy that follows the 7 nationally recognised dimensions of schools-based chaplaincy to be pastoral, worshipful, spiritual, missional, servant-hearted, prophetic, and pedagogic. So those are the 4 things we do in schools. And then we also partner with local churches to upskill volunteers to run extended sport or dance coaching in the evenings or at the weekend called Kick Academies, where we upskill volunteers to do some coaching with an inspirational thought from the Bible and then an application of matches or dance routines, depending on what type of Kick Academy it is. In every town, village, or city, there is a church and there's often a school. And so there's an opportunity for Kick to be placed. And so our exciting new vision is to reach a generation of young people within a generation of time. And so essentially that's our mission to transform young people's lives. But our new vision is to go to the 15 regions of the UK across the next 15 years to make this transformational difference in the lives of children and young people.
Wow, that's there's a lot in there. I'll unpack some out in a bit. Where does kicking you fit? How did that start?
Yeah,
Is my first question.
well Kick was founded by a few inspirational people. I've got to say that, our first ever coach was fresh out of uni, a guy called Tom Rutter. and he just wanted to coach sport and make a difference for the kingdom of God. And then there were some fantastic visionary people from Youth for Christ who assisted in the founding of Kick, and then on top of that, there was a church leader, the late great Trevor Patterson, who had three sons, a bit like you and me, Andy, and he could see that he was going to have a bit of a challenge when they got a little bit older because they'd want to play sport on a Sunday. I don't know if you know this today, Andy. Your children and young people are 7 times more likely to play sport on a Sunday than go to church in the UK.
Wow.
I think that's really sad. But it's not only that. If a child or young person plays sport on a Sunday, it often leads a family away because they need to take them there and watch them and then bring them home. So it fractures family engagement in church, not just children and young people. And so what this church leader thought, he thought, I can see this coming. I can see us losing our kids and losing our families to sport. Why does it have to be one or the other where they compete? Why can't it be both side by side, sport and church together? And so he went into church on one Sunday morning and he said, guys, we're going to come in half an hour earlier on a Sunday every week for the sake of our young people. So instead of 10:30, they came in at 10. They did Sunday morning, Sunday school. At 11:30, all the kids went out to a Kick Academy where they did coaching, inspirational thought from the Bible, and then matches. But so that by 1:00, they all went home for Sunday lunch with their folks. So it's this way of reinventing Sunday school, keeping it active and physical, as well as welcoming church and unchurched kids to church through, if you like, providing both side by side.
If you go back to Sunday school when it was really becoming Sunday school for the first time, it fulfilled a need, particularly in Shropshire, where I learned about this for them. Shropshire had lots of teenage minors or children minors. So on a Sunday, it was their only day off, right? So they came to church, they did church, food, lessons, proper school on a Sunday. And it was fulfilling a real need in the community by here's the need, here's what we can do, meeting those two together. And all of a sudden you've got this joining up of the need and the church. And that sounds exactly what's been going on with what you just said with Kick, with let's do sport and church.
Well, look, I don't know if you know this, but a third of all football clubs were founded by the church. So Manchester United are called the Red Devils because Manchester City were founded by the Christians. Southampton are called the Saints because they were founded from St Mary's Church, which their stadium has just recently been named after. Bolton, Tottenham, Everton, even Liverpool, as well as Aston Villa, who founded the Football League out of their church, were all founded by Christians. And so, again, many of our sport and church have actually had a really strong relationship over the years. They've just drifted a little bit more recently. But interestingly, the Football Association was set up to play games on Saturdays and if you look at where football clubs largely are based, they're often based in cities or near ports. It's why in leafy Richmond upon Thames, there's no football club, because there wasn't a slum in Richmond upon Thames. Often clubs were set up where there were slums and young men were getting drunk on a Friday night. And so as a social action project, churches set up football clubs so that the young men wouldn't get as drunk because they'd want to play sport the next day, and give them a chance to come to church then on the Sunday. And so government, hospitals, prisons, schools themselves were actually often institutions established by churches, by Christians. And so it's important to remember that, just as you say, like a Sunday school was a response to a need. Food banks, I mean, goodness me, and many food banks are maybe the modern day equivalent of those things. And it's good to respond to a need and be intentional and missional about those things. And that's what essentially Kick is seeking to do, is to rekindle a bit of sport and faith together.
I always say every day is a learning day. I did not know I'm writing stuff down. A third of football clubs founded by churches is something I had no clue about.
Oh, there is an amazing book by, I think it's Peter Lupson, called Faith in Football. And it just charts a whole bunch of testimonies about different football clubs that were founded by Christians. And it's incredibly moving stories as to why those things happened. And again, I'd highly recommend that to you.
Awesome. Right, let's move on a little bit to kick today.
Yeah.
You've mentioned all sorts of things, 25 different sports activities. You've got street dance, 15 types of that. You've got mentoring, chaplaincy. Where is kick? I mean, you said you want to reach a generation in a generation, but where is kick today? Are you out of one place, moving out slowly, or is it sort of pockets around the UK? How's that going?
Yeah, well, look, I was previously a principal of an outstanding school, and I was not sure. I was feeling like God was calling me out of doing this, but I didn't know where, and I was nervous to leave. But I got that sense, and by the grace of God, Kick came to me and they said, "Look, uh, our director has just resigned. We're thinking about closing down the organisation, but as we've been praying." Your name came up. Would you ever leave your job to come work for us? And so it was beautiful timing, and so I came to Kick 10 years ago when we had 7 staff, and by the grace of God, today we have 94.
Wow.
And so what's happened along that journey is in the first 5 years we went pan London, where we were initially in 6 boroughs. We grew to 28, and then lockdown hit, and Boris Johnson shuts down all the schools. Where we provide professional services to those schools. Essentially, our funding model is to charge the schools and make it free for the churches. And so with the schools closed, we thought, oh, that's it. That's the end of it. We've all lost our jobs. But amazingly, we called all the schools and we said, look, we're not going to be here after the lockdowns if you don't stand with us. And at the time, of the 70 schools we were in, 58 said, make sure you're in on Monday. You're becoming our key workers. To work with the key worker children in school while their parents are fighting in the hospitals and the police force and
Wow.
etc. While our teachers pivot to work remotely with the learners that are locked up at home. And so that was amazing. God really protected and preserved us in that moment. But post pandemic, we made a brave decision to go national for 3 reasons. 1, the need had dramatically increased. 2, Zoom literacy had brought the whole country closer together. Today I've already been in Newcastle this morning. Then I was in the Midlands. I'm now meeting with you, and this afternoon I'll be in East London and West London, all in a day's work because of Zoom. It made everything easier. But then, thirdly, we just felt a sense that we'd been preserved for a purpose, and that it was right that we shared what we'd learned in other parts of the country. And so we grew out of London to the West Midlands, East Midlands, and the east of England. The following year to the northwest and northeast. And this year, for the first time, we are coming to the south and southeast to make, hopefully, a transformational difference in the lives of children and young people in those areas. And we do, as I mentioned earlier, have as part of our vision to go to all 15 regions of the UK across the next 15 years. So 4 years in, we're up to 8 regions, and we're very excited about that.
It's a fabulous growth, and you can grow so far off your own merits. You can put money in, you can throw money and do all sorts of things, but there comes a point that I see when an organization grows, and it has to get to a point where it's only really going to grow because people are interested, because it's got value, because people have spoken highly of it. And it sounds like you've already gone way past that, because now you're just growing more and more exponentially.
It's been a thriller, and as I say, at each moment, there's when I first joined the organization, it was on its knees to kind of galvanize and get through that first year was a big moment. I spent the first month talking to every member of staff, trustees, some former staff and former trustees, some volunteers and schools. I met every single school we worked in and all the Kick Academy churches that we worked with. And I just sought to listen and learn and make note. And then I started writing the new strategy for the following 5 years. And we have some inspirational trustees at Kick, and our chair, a guy called Matt King, he just really backed me and encouraged me to go for it. And in creating that first strategy that we could all get behind and get through that first year, that was an important change point. Then as we started to grow and really spread quickly across London, bringing people on and employing new people, we could only do that because we'd agreed what our 5 values were at Kick, so the DNA of who our coaches were. And so what we did was I just asked our staff, I said, what makes Kick unique? Who are we? If Kick was a person, what would be their characteristics? And we landed at 5 values: to be aspirational on behalf of the young people, even when they don't believe in themselves, we believe in them. Secondly, to be compassionate in our service delivery, the way that we seek to love and respect the children and young people is important to us, and show compassion when they're going through difficult times. The E of ACE2 is that we wanted to be excellent in our service delivery. And then the 2 I's at the end were to be intentional in our relationships and also integral in our decision making. And so this mnemonic of ACE2, maybe a tennis analogy, was crucial to us in arriving at the DNA of who Kick was, and then it gave us a good platform to add new people and share that joint feeling about where we were going and why we were doing it.
Fab. Let's go back a bit further in time. You've mentioned God, you've mentioned faith, you've mentioned being called out of a job, but what's your story of faith? How did that, are you a childhood church-going Christian? Is there more of a dramatic experience? What's your faith story?
Yeah, well, great question. I haven't been asked this in a long time. I mean, look, I grew up in a home with 2 Christian parents, but interestingly, neither of them grew up in Christian homes. So my father became a Christian when he was 16 via a chaplain at his school in Herefordshire, and my mother became a Christian at university, and I think she met my dad at the Christian Union. And so they came from very different backgrounds, one in a city, the other one in the country, equally, one from maybe a middle-class family, one from working-class family. But what was special was that they didn't impose their faith upon me. They were very clear it was my choice and my choice alone. So I had that real freedom, really, to choose to follow it or not. And it didn't ever feel imposed upon me, which I'm very grateful for. And so I was able to really make up my own mind, and grew up going to church. And then I chose to get baptized when I was 15, and stuck with it, really. I went on to, I guess when you leave home, that's a great moment to stick or twist. And some of my best friends that had grown up in Christian homes, decided to stop following God. But I hung in there thanks to some great role models around me at the time at university, and ended up being a part of the leadership of the Christian Union, and really growing in my walk with God. I started to read the Bible all the way through, and spoke in tongues for the first time, which was a really special moment for me, and saw people become Christians, and saw God do healings and just things that I'd not seen before. And so those were great moments for me to found my faith for myself. And then I guess at different parts of the journey along the way, when I met my wife, or became a father, or had these job change situations, in spite of my stubbornness, God was very faithful to me and spoke to me. And so at different moments, the kind of big decisions, I've taken them to the Lord, and each time He's spoken to me about what to do. And Kick was no different from that, to come here. And nor was it different when I, previous working in a school. So again, I've just known God's presence in my life along that way, and and so I guess it's more of an evolution than a revolution in my life. But I'm halfway. I'm at half time in my life. I've just recently turned 40, and I had a big load of celebrations to celebrate that last year, and really thank people for their contribution to my life so far. I mean, that's that famous African proverb. I think about it takes a village to raise a child, and I would definitely say that it takes a church to raise a whole church to raise a Christian. And again, I've been very grateful for other good examples along the way of faith. And so I guess at Kick, we're seeking to provide strong role models to children, young people in schools, and also empower church volunteers to be those role models in church. And I think that's very important for the sake of the children, young people we work with.
I love some of the story of your life and how I can see God preparing you for what you're doing, even though perhaps when you were in a school running an organization that is responsible for working in schools with chaplaincy probably was not at the forefront of your mind. How was teaching for you? Was there a specialty for you?
Oh, well, I mean, I have a very funny education journey, really. I I grew up in an affluent part of the country in Richmond, in Southwest London, and lots of my friends all went to private schools, and I didn't go to private school. I went to a state school, and they would all get like amazing grades, and I would often languish, and I'd be like, "Why is this happening?" Like, it's so unfair. I wish I was going to private school, and all these guys get the best teaching possible, and I'm, not having that and struggling. And then I got a U grade in my maths mock for GCSE, an ungradable grade. It was horrendous. And my parents were like, "I think you're dyslexic." And dyslexia was sort of newish at the time, was it real or was it? Anyway, I went and I was dyslexic in 7 out of 10 areas, but I was mild in each of them. And that just really helped me realize I wasn't stupid. I just thought in different ways. And that really helped motivate me to work hard in my preparation and revision for my GCSE exams. And I went from a U grade in maths to a C grade. And that was a huge achievement for me. I scraped through, I think I passed sort of 6 or 7 GCSEs to get to college. And then I carried that work ethic on, and I'd revise 11 hours a day during those sort of exam seasons.
Wow.
And I achieved an A in media studies, an A in history, and a C in theology at A level. And then I just pressed on into university and got my 2-1 in film and television studies. So I actually did a film degree. I wrote my dissertation on Arnold Schwarzenegger. How great fun. It's great fun. So I did a film degree. And then I was doing some media programs for so some video editing for a small charity, and I ended up kind of coming across another charity, and I started doing some media training, sort of media course training, video editing, and then that grew, and I took and the charity grew from 5 staff to 250, and that's where we founded a school, and I ended up becoming head teacher of that school and doing a teaching degree as part of that diploma. And so what was fascinating, was to end up going through that, that education journey of being dyslexic, but going on to becoming a head teacher and then a CEO. It was great fun. I'll tell you one really funny story. At Kick, when I joined, ahead of going national, I thought I've got to get some leadership and management training under my belt. So I did a master's in change management for charities. And what was really, really funny is I ended up with an MSc, a master's in science. And I failed GCSE science. I got 2 Ds. But I'm now somehow a master of science because I did a leadership and management degree. It's nothing to do with biology, chemistry, or the other ones, physics. But I often chuckle to myself that I'm somehow a master of science and didn't pass my GCSE. But no, it was good fun, and again, for anyone listening that struggles with academics, hang in there. We're not all made the same, and some of us have to work harder to get through what others find easy. My oldest son is very academic. These things come easy to him, but my middle son is dyslexic and he struggles. But what I see in him is a work ethic that's different to the older son. And that work ethic will help you in all kinds of ways. So you may see it as a disadvantage, the struggle, but actually the struggle develops perseverance and perseverance character. And so hang in there and, keep going.
Absolutely. I failed my GCSE maths twice. So when
Oh, oh,
I wanted a C grade, I really wanted a C,
oh,
and I
yeah,
failed the first time. So this is fifth year, secondary school, year 11. It's about 15, 16 if you're from outside the UK. My
yeah,
particular school, the sixth form was attached to it, so sixth form college. So my lower sixth, I was going on for 16 towards 17, failed again, and I thought I really, really want to get a C grade. So my upper sixth, nearly going on for 18 now, I'm there with the 15-year-olds doing their maths, and I finally got my C grade. Mine wasn't dyslexia. I just didn't like sitting down and studying. It was that
well,
simple.
well, that's the thing. Where do we use a quadratic equation? How often do you use algebra?
Pythagoras.
I mean, honestly, you'll never carry a calculator around with you when you're older, and we all do
Yes.
with our phones. So
I
again,
have a manual one too.
exactly. I mean, honestly, it's just look, these things they can define your identity. I felt I was stupid, and I wasn't stupid. I just maybe, my friends were all getting these 6A stars and 4As in their private schools, and I was, really struggling to hit that C grade. But again, don't let that define your identity, because we're all made differently, and we all in the Garden of Eden, God said it was not good for man to be alone. And actually, we're all made differently, aren't we? We all have different skills. I mean, hilariously, Albert Einstein was dyslexic. Dennis Bergkamp was dyslexic. Richard Branson is dyslexic. I mean, these guys think differently, and then but yeah, again, the education and academic system is not great for them, but they actually broke the mold and achieved beautiful things. And so again, it's easy to underestimate difference, and diversity is something that we can really celebrate.
Coming back to something I heard about before, and you brought it up earlier when we started the interview. You got 15 types of street dance going
Oh
on.
yeah,
Now, 10 years ago, street dance probably was something that you would never have heard of, probably. I have heard of it now. And also, I met you at a networking event where you mentioned it, and you mentioned it again.
we love
How,
it.
how did you, who does street dance? How do you find someone that can do street dance coming to you and say, let's do street dance across the UK? How does that happen?
Well, look, in my ignorance, when I first came to Kick, I didn't even realize that dance is a part of the physical education curriculum. So you can't deliver PE without including dance. But being a brother of three sisters, I was very familiar with ballet and contemporary dance, and how sometimes that was just a little bit exclusive, in that the boys didn't really want to do it.
Nope.
The girls loved it, but the boys didn't want to do it. And so I looked at this and I did some research, and I found that street dance was the other way around. It was 50-50 male-female ratio. Boys loved it just as much as girls. And so it was very inclusive to choose street dance. And so we launched street dance at Kick, and we had this fantastic senior street dance coach, Rachel Hollings, who's given nearly 9 years of her career to Kick. I mean, been fantastic with us, an amazing, amazing woman. And what we've done is we've built and added different dance disciplines onto that over time. So we have street dance, break dance, locking, hopping, stepping, house, otherwise known as hip hop, musical theatre, cheerleading, creative improvisation, and then new for this year, Brazilian carnival, Bollywood dance, Pilates, Afro beats, and Zumba, as we've extended the cultural diversity of our different dance disciplines. So there is a wide range of different dance disciplines engage not just one demographic, but a number. and that's been really exciting to see. And so, street dance in its origins came out around the sort of late 70s, early 60s, as different people on some of the inner cities of America, sort of New York, etc., started dancing on the streets, and different signature dance moves were named after the nicknames of those young people. So the Bart Simpson is named after a kid who was called the Bart Simpson. It's a brilliant dance move. The Robocop is a particular dance move. It was named after a kid whose nickname was Robocop. And so again, if you think of, I don't know, if you think of Peter Crouch, and his robotic dance moves, he is just locking his joints when he's doing a goal celebration, or did do a goal celebration. That's locking. Popping is where you're popping out your joints. And so again, actually, these things are not very new. They're things that we've seen it feed into culture through Run DMC and things like that in the sort of 80s, 90s, and are now really a key part of their own cultural phenomena across the world. But as I say, there's a lot of interesting history and stories that are communicated through these different arts disciplines. And one of my favorite ones is contemporary improvisation, because it can take some moves from ballet and contemporary and embed them in a street dance context. Wow. So for those that love those dance disciplines, they can still use some of that movement, but inside a street dance context, which is a little bit more inclusive of both male and female genders. So again, we've just found that to be fascinating.
Let's come back to where you're helping and working with churches. So if somebody's listening to this thinking, great, you're in schools, that's very good, brilliant, thumbs up. But you also mentioned you're working with churches. How does that function from the perspective of a church? You think, well, what can they do to help us?
We exist to serve local churches. It's really important to us. I have 3 sons. There are more kids than adults in our family. We long for a day when there are more kids than adults in our church families. And so the church demographic in the UK is older rather than younger. Apparently 12% of adults read their Bible, pray, or go to church at least once a month. So would be described as kind of, if you like, active Christians.
Yeah.
But only 4.5% of kids go to church. And so that is 3 times less likely. So the church is growing older, not younger. And we need to look at ways that we can be welcoming for children, young people on a Sunday. It's if you went to a kid and said you can go and play sport on a Sunday or go to church, they might pick sport every single time. So we need to help churches be as welcoming as possible for these children, young people to come, to stay, to feel embedded. And I've often felt, it doesn't need to be one or the other. It can be both sport and faith in church. And so if you're a church and you're thinking, man, I don't know how to do this. How would we, grow more younger, if you like? We would love to speak to you and look at any which way we could be helpful. We have, we could place missional coaches into your schools without it costing you a penny. We could train and upskill your volunteers to run kick academies with coaching, coaching, inspirational thought and matches or dance routines. And it won't cost you, there won't be any ongoing costs to that. We'll give that away to you. And thirdly, if there are people in your churches that are looking for work and we win some work in a local school, we'd love to employ them. And so again, those are, if you like, 3 gifts from us to local churches. Engagement in schools, if you like, extending your youth work. Secondly, training and upskilling volunteers for the Kick Academies. And then that third one of creating job opportunities for local people from local churches. And so again, we just want to be a blessing to churches. And if we can be helpful, we'd love to do that.
Thank you, Joe. I love anybody who wants to serve the community or the church. kind of, we call it kingdom orientated. It's just a fancy way of saying they want to
Yeah.
work with other Christians. It's not about them. It's about the overall trying to serve God. That always gets me very excited. And I love how you want to help churches. I've worked in full-time church ministry, and it's quite a hard place. It's quite a lonely place most of the time. And you get lots of resources thrown towards churches. You've got to use us. But actually, I hear something like yours and think, yeah, but this actually is something we could do, because actually there's support that's ongoing rather than pay us £1 million and you can have a week's worth of something. Well, we need more than that. And that's what you're providing.
Yeah, that is the, we want to be lasting, and again, we may reach to a point where there's no more opportunity to go into schools and do sport, dance, mentoring, and chaplaincy. So that there may be a time, a window of opportunity for this. But while that window exists, let's get on it and make a difference. And where we can enable churches to do this, let's get on it and make a difference. And there's a church in Hounslow that we set up to run a Kick Academy 7 years ago. They now have 121 kids come a week
Wow.
that hear the gospel every week, and a number of the families have started coming to church as a result. And so again, the time is now. The young people need us now, and we want to get in that and be helpful as soon as we can.
Amen. If people want to find out more about Kick, have you got a website, a place they can come to find out more?
Yes, www.kick.org.uk. That's www.kick.org.uk. Very simple. Please jump on the website, look at the career opportunities we have. Please email us if you are a teacher, a head teacher at school, or if you're a local church leader or youth worker or passionate parent. Please contact us. We would be delighted to upskill people to run Kick Academies. And so, yeah, please get in contact. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure and delight seeing you again. Learning more about Kick. It fascinates me, all the different plethora of sporting activities. It's not just football
No,
or running. It's so much more than that.
definitely. And look, there are so many different ways to compete and use our bodies physically. But for us at Kick, we want to be holistic in that journey. The physical, mental, and spiritual development of a young person is very important to us. And so, however we can be helpful in that journey, we're all fearfully and wonderfully made. And we must remember children are made in the image of God, and therefore need to be treated with great care and respect. And so again, developing them physically, mentally, and spiritually is important to us.
Amen. Thank you, Joe from kick.org.uk.